what would you say is your best call? Like, in a fight.
It might be as a color commentator. It might be the Corrales. It's hard to choose, but might be the Corrales Castillo fight, and because it's turned out to be such an iconic fight. As a play-by-play announcer, and one of the other best nights I've ever had as a broadcaster was doing the Barkley Duran fight.
Okay.
Which was astonishing. And the great Gil Clancy was working with me. And Gil was kind of a mentor to me when I came into the boxing world in 1980. He really took me under his wing. He was very helpful, very giving, and a savant. Gil was a savant of the sport, and he would pick things up before. I mean, listen, if you're a commentator, you have several jobs. One is to give anecdotal information about the fighters that hasn't been given by the play-by-play man that you think are pertinent or interesting. Number two is to analyze the action you're seeing. And number three is to foreshadow what might come. Now, that third part is a tricky one. And no human being that ever announced boxing was better at that than Gil Clancy. He would tell you something and bang, 2 rounds later, there it was. So doing that fight with him was magical, and the night was magical. It was a snowstorm in Atlantic City. Fans, we didn't think anyone was going to show up. It looked like, and in the early on, there wasn't that many people there, and you slowly saw it start filling up. By the time we had the main event, the arena was full. It was like some magical thing. And later I talked to one guy. I said, wow, how did you even get here, and what motivated you to do it? He said, I had a ticket to see a Roberto Duran, man. Nothing was going to stop me from getting this. I think that was the motivating thing. And of course, it was a brilliant fight in which Iran Barkley ironically fought maybe the best fight of his life. And to this day, to be honest, I feel Barkley deserved the decision. But nonetheless, it was a brilliant fight. And Gil and I I was very happy with what I did in that fight. And I've done maybe 30% of the fights I've done play-by-play, 20%. And I enjoy doing it a lot. It's something different. So that would be the best play-by-play one, probably Corrales Castillo as a color commentator.
Okay. How'd you feel about your call in the Tank Davis Santa Cruz fight, where you're like, if Santa Cruz
got that up, thank you, I appreciate it. That was great. Yeah, there's one of those moments where you and I didn't phrase it quite the way I wanted to phrase it. Mm-hmm. On top of the fact that it turned out to be, of course, not a good comment to make at the moment. For those people that don't know, it had to do with the first 4 or 5 rounds of the Santa Cruz Davis fight were very exciting, right? They were give and take. Sure. And Santa Cruz was fighting probably the wrong fight. He wasn't staying as much outside. There was very little movement. He was engaging with Davis, but not doing that badly. And I think some of the judges had him winning 2 or 3 of the rounds. And I said, the way I phrased it, which wasn't the way I wanted to phrase it, was I think I said something like, well, if the Davis people thought he was going to fold because of Davis's power, that's not happening yet. Literally, the second I finished that statement, he hits him with that giant uppercut.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, it was terrible. Because I phrased it in such a way that it almost made it sound like, hey, this guy's not going anywhere. When I really wanted to say, the way I wanted to say it was, so far, but I didn't, and I did say it to this point, but I didn't emphasize the so far, so that it looked like I was making this grand proclamation that, Santa Cruz, hey, he can stand up the power of Davis. That's not what I really meant, but I said it in an odd way, and so that was terrible. Yeah, that was one of those ones when it's out of your mouth, you wish you could take it back.
But just know, us fans, we didn't. You've earned enough leeway with us where it wasn't like, oh man, get this guy off TV. No, it was kind of like,
well, you hope so anyway. And there were a lot of people that were there were some people that gave me a hard time over it, and I get it. You can't, but that was, and there have been other times where I've said things that weren't quite correct, or were off the beam, and you just you live with it. You listen. You're doing. The interesting thing is when you do a 3 to 4 hour live TV show, and you're reacting to things that happen, and you're trying to use the right information that you have to talk about it. There are going to be times during that 3.5 hours that you're going to do something that isn't as perfect as you wanted to do it. Sure. It's just inevitable, right? And you hope that those things are limited and that they're not dramatic. That was one of the dramatic ones. And you hope that you don't ruin anything.